Welcome back to Tech News Now. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
This week it's SpaceX and their latest Starship test flight. I gotta say, seeing that upper stage light up the sky like a giant firework was something else.
Oh, yeah. Can't beat that for a visual. Space travel, though. Still pretty risky business.
No kidding. So, for those who haven't been obsessively, checking their space news, SpaceX launched its Starship prototype from their starbase in Texas. Seventh attempt to get this thing off the ground.
And it's a big thing. We're talking biggest, most powerful rocket ever. Not just like a small upgrade here. This is next level ambition.
Right. It's like comparing a monster truck to a kid's toy car. And the goal,
Okay.
revolutionizing space travel. SpaceX wants to use Starship for missions to Mars and even beyond.
Exactly. Imagine humans on Mars, not just robots. Starship's designed to be fully reusable, so that would make space travel way cheaper. Open up all sorts of possibilities.
Okay, so this test flight, things started off pretty smoothly, right? That booster landing. Wow.
Remarkable. Really remarkable engineering. After sending the Starship upper stage up, the booster comes back down. Controlled descent.
Wow.
Decelerating from, supersonic speeds. That's why people heard sonic booms. And then, boom, lands gracefully back on the launch tower.
I still can't believe they can land a rocket like that. Upright, I mean. Like something out of a movie. And this wasn't even their first successful landing.
Right. They've done it a couple of times now, but they've also had some mishaps. Remember that splashdown in the Gulf a few months back?
Yes, post-flight is definitely not easy. Always some risk involved.
Absolutely. And this test flight, well, it reminded us of that. Booster landing was a success, but the upper stage, let's just say it didn't go to plan.
That is putting it mildly. It basically exploded over the Atlantic. What happened up there?
Still investigating, but it looks like there was a propulsion anomaly during the upper stage's ascent. Something went wrong with the engines.
And, well, the result was pretty dramatic. There's footage online of the spaceship breaking apart. It looked like a Michael Bay movie.
Dramatic, sure, but also concerning. Not just because they lost the spacecraft. There was so much debris falling that they had to reroute flights over the Gulf of Mexico. Imagine being on a plane and they tell you they're diverting to avoid falling spaceship parts.
Talk about a travel delay.
Right. And it shows one of the challenges of this new era of spaceflight. More launches means we have to figure out how to manage the risks of falling debris.
For sure. But, hey, at least Elon Musk seems to be taking it in stride. You see his post after the launch.
Oh, yeah. Success is uncertain, but entertainment is guaranteed. Classic Elon.
Yeah, although I bet the people at SpaceX who worked on the launch didn't find it that funny.
Probably not. But hey, at least they got some amazing footage.
I guess so. Jokes aside, Musk did give some initial thoughts on what caused the failure. Something about a fuel leak.
Yeah, he mentioned a possible oxygen fuel leak above the engine firewall. Sounds like the pressure buildup exceeded the vent capacity, and, well, you saw what happened.
So, a pretty serious issue. What does this mean for SpaceX's plans? Back to the drawing board.
Don't think they'll be scrapping the whole Starship program. Musk's already talking about solutions like checking for leaks, adding fire suppression, stuff like that.
So business as usual for SpaceX then? Full speed ahead.
Pretty much. Musk even said he doesn't think this will delay the next launch by much.
Well, you gotta admire their persistence. They don't let setbacks stop them. But this explosion does raise some questions, doesn't it? I mean, Starship's supposed to be their ticket to Mars. Does this make that whole thing less likely?
That's a good question. One we should definitely dig into, but first, let's look closer at that booster landing, because even though there was this big failure, there's still some important stuff to learn from that success. I mean, that booster landing was seriously impressive. To control something that massive, descending at supersonic speeds and land it back on the launch pad. It's a testament to the engineering at SpaceX.
I know, it's like a magic trick.
Ooh.
But it's not magic.
Nope.
It's science and some seriously advanced technology, and a key part of SpaceX's vision.
Exactly. That successful landing is a big step towards reusable spacecraft. Think about it. If they can recover and reuse those boosters, it'll make space travel much cheaper.
That's what's so exciting. It's not just pushing the boundaries of technology. It's about making space travel more accessible. Not just for, governments and billionaires.
Yeah.
For everyone.
Yeah, it's like democratizing space, and that's a powerful idea. But there are still some hurdles to overcome. This recent explosion is a reminder that it won't be easy.
Yeah, that upper stage disintegration was a big setback. It's interesting to think about this in the context of the whole commercial space race. SpaceX isn't alone anymore.
Oh, absolutely. You've got companies like Blue Origin, founded by Jeff Bezos. They're making big strides too. In fact, right before the Starship launch, Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket reached orbit for the first time.
Wow, I hadn't heard that. So it's a real race now.
Mm.
What do you think this competition means for space travel?
Well, competition is usually a good thing, right? It drives innovation, it pushes companies to get better, and ultimately it benefits everyone. So SpaceX and Blue Origin competing is probably going to accelerate development, which is good for anyone who's excited about space.
So we might actually see space hotels and moon bases sooner than we thought?
Maybe it's possible. And it's not just about tourism and fancy space hotels. There's huge potential for science research, even things like resource extraction.
Yeah, people have been talking about mining asteroids for rare metals. It sounds so futuristic. Maybe that's where we're headed.
It is exciting, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. There's a long way to go before we're, going on space vacations or mining asteroids. And this Starship explosion reminds us there will be setbacks.
That's true, but setbacks are part of any new thing, right?
Yeah.
That's how that we learn and get better.
Yeah, exactly. The important thing is that SpaceX learns from this and uses those lessons to make Starship safer and more reliable.
One thing that struck me was Elon Musk's reaction. He's always so optimistic, even when things go wrong.
Oh, he's not one to dwell on failure. Did you see his post after the explosion? Success is uncertain, but entertainment is guaranteed. You gotta love his sense of humor.
It's almost like he's made failure part of the SpaceX brand. Our rockets might explode, but hey, at least it's a good show.
I don't know about that. I think they genuinely believe that failure is part of innovation. They take risks, push boundaries, and they know sometimes things won't go right.
It's very Silicon Valley attitude, right? Move fast and break things.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But we're talking about space travel here. The stakes are a lot higher. Breaking things here can have some pretty serious consequences.
Absolutely. So how do you balance the need to innovate quickly with the need to be safe?
Yeah.
Especially if you're talking about sending people to Mars.
That's the big question. And it's one that SpaceX and the whole space industry has to figure out as we move forward.
Well, it's a pretty compelling story, isn't it? The triumphs, the setbacks, the risks, the rewards. It's like a real-life space opera.
Yeah.
But bringing it back to this Starship launch, what do you think is the most important takeaway?
Yeah, it really highlights that space travel is, well, it's hard. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement and the big ideas. But sending anything into space, let alone a person, it's complicated and risky.
It really is. It makes you appreciate those early pioneers, right? Like sending a rocket to Mars is not like launching a new app. It's a whole other level.
It is. And thinking about putting humans on Mars, that's a whole different ballgame.
Absolutely. Sending rovers and probes is one thing, but actually getting people there and back, that's the real challenge.
Yeah, it would be a huge accomplishment, one of the biggest ever, and it'll take more than just technology. We have to understand how the human body handles space travel, how to live on a completely different planet.
Yeah, Mars is not exactly a welcoming place. No oxygen bars or anything.
Well, not yet, anyway. But that's part of the long-term plan, right? Terraforming Mars, making it more like Earth, so humans could actually live there comfortably. It sounds crazy, but scientists are actually thinking about it.
Okay, now that's a bit much for me, terraforming. Yeah. That sounds ridiculously hard, even for SpaceX.
Oh, it would be a massive project, no doubt. It would mean changing the Martian atmosphere, creating a magnetic field to protect it from radiation, maybe even bringing in plants to make oxygen. It's a really long-term goal, something that could take hundreds of years. Maybe it's not even possible.
I think that's a problem for future generations to solve.
Yeah.
What about SpaceX and the other companies? What are they focused on right now? Are we going to see those space hotels anytime soon?
Blue Origin, while they're interested in Mars too, they've been focusing on building things closer to home. They're working on orbital habitats like space stations that could be used for research or even for tourists.
Space tourism. So instead of a trip to the beach, it'll be a rocket ride to a space station. Yeah. I'm in. But those tickets are probably going to be expensive.
Probably not cheap, no. But the idea is that as space travel gets more common, the cost will come down and more people will be able to afford it.
It's a great goal to make space travel something everyone can do. But even if I never get to go myself, it's pretty inspiring to see what these companies are doing.
It shows what we're capable of, When we really set our minds to something, it gives me hope.
Yeah, me too. So for our listeners who are feeling inspired, what can they do to learn more or even get involved?
Well, there's tons of stuff out there. Follow the news from SpaceX, Blue Origin, NASA. Look for online forums and groups for space fans. There are even projects you can help with.
And hey, maybe you'll end up working in the space industry. Who knows? You could be one of the first people on Mars.
The possibilities are out there. That's what makes this such an exciting time.
Well said. So, to everyone listening, keep looking up at the stars, keep dreaming big, and never stop exploring.
And keep listening to Tech News Now for all the latest in tech and space.
That's all for this week's Deep Dive. Thanks for listening.